Hello, beautiful soul. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to give you a trigger warning as we are discussing topics and personal stories of depression, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and suicidal thoughts. If you're struggling with your mental health or if you at all feel triggered by this episode, please don't hesitate to reach out for support. Reach out to someone you love, someone you trust. You can also reach out to myself, and I've also included some extra support suggestions in the notes section of this episode. Thanks. Hello, my loves, and welcome to another episode of the Unbound Soul podcast, where we gather incredible guests from all over to talk about personal stories of overcoming subconscious patterns and conditioning to come home to the true self. We hope to inspire you to dive deeper into the inner work and embark on a journey of self-discovery so that you can create the life you truly desire and live in alignment with your true potential. Today, I have brought on an amazing guest, one of my first coaches who I found in the midst of honestly, the first time that I messaged this beautiful soul, I was out on a training ride, and I can remember I was in the middle of nowhere. It was raining. One of my friends had recommended that I reach out to him and explore his services. And I'd stopped to have a pee break at the public toilets in a local town, and I messaged him. I just thought, you know what? It's time. It's time to actually reach out and invest in my own personal growth. And within a couple of days, or even on the same day, he replied to me, and I already, just in that first reply, I felt like I had found the person. I'd found that person who could finally hold me. I'd found that person who could finally be the shining light on my shadows and actually give me a clear way forward. And that person is Nash Mackey. He's a rapid breakthrough transformation coach, a certified hypnotherapist, and he has taught me a lot of what I know. I respect Nash so much, so much from the bottom of my heart. Over the years, he's become a friend. He's felt like a brother to me, and he's been an amazing guide as well. Nash is truly someone that I look up to. If you follow his content, you kind of can see that he's the type of person that puts in the work to become a greater version of himself every single day. He also puts in the work to find meaning and purpose of why he's here. Why he's here living another day. And he's had to find that why because he's faced the question of, do I even want to be here anymore? He faced that question when he was really young. He'd been through eating disorders. He'd been through a condition that really physically crippled him and was very painful, that he talks about in the podcast. And he hid all of that away very successfully. He comes from a pretty large family where I can only imagine that it would have been pretty easy to hide away part of your own inner struggles and physical struggles that he was going through. And he transformed all of that, not just to create the life that he has here today, but he went through the military. He is ex-army. He's been through the literal trenches of life. And he's come out the other side despite having experienced so much more trauma than any person should have to experience. And he's created his empire. He's created his passion, his purpose, his mission. He's in alignment with what he is truly here for. And I believe that is the journey of coming home to your true self. This is what it takes. It takes diving deep into asking that question of, what am I actually truly here for? What is my mission? What gets me up out of bed every day? And I know that that's a really generic question, but this is something that Nash has actually answered. He truly knows who he is, and he truly knows what he's here for. So I hope you really find inspiration. I hope you find guidance, and I hope you find some practical ways or things that you can apply to your own life in order to get that one step closer to coming home to who you truly are. Enjoy. Hi, Nash.
G'day, Shan. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. So great to see you.
Yeah, you too.
What's going on?
Look at your new space.
Oh
Different.
yeah, it's sort of evolving. I whenever I have time, I kind of add a few bookshelves and just keep chipping away at it.
Yeah, I love it. I
Yeah, I'm
love
gonna move this fan because that looks a bit ordinary, doesn't it?
it. That's okay.
That's
No,
right.
no worries at all. Um, how's your day been?
It's been awesome. It's been super productive. Just been creating some hypnosis sessions for people on the back end. So what I do is I do the hypnosis sessions and then I create transformational recordings. So yeah, that's kind of like a bit of a process, just reframing and like looking at people's wording and just flipping it out. So it
Mm.
takes a bit of work, but it's always great. It's always great. So as you know, Shan, like when you do this kind of work, as you work on others, you work on yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's always cool, you know?
And vice versa. I feel like when you work on yourself, you are like it becomes through as a transmission to your clients as well.
Absolutely.
Like there was even just this morning, I I was clearing out a lot of like old shame and guilt and
Yeah, okay.
these like deep things in myself that I didn't know were there and they came through in a dream and I was like, whoa.
Really?
And and then my client messaged me, one of my clients messaged me this morning and was like, I'm feeling so much like shame around this. And I was like, okay. So I needed to clear this out so I could help you through this
Wow.
process and like
Wow.
the way things work in that divine order is just like continues to surprise me almost every week, every day.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess you could there's like loads of things that we could say like oh it's just coincidence or whatever, but the amount of times that it happens when you're in this work you're like I can't really ignore that anymore.
1,000%. A thousand
Yeah.
percent. It's beautiful you're in tune with that, Shan. It's super
Mm,
cool. It's super cool. And yeah,
yeah.
it's so interesting. Our clients are there for our growth as much as we are for theirs.
Mm, yeah, and you like
That's always
step
fascinating.
in and out as like the if you I guess having that humility is the thing as well where you can almost step into like okay, that's something that I really need to learn about myself
Hmm.
or the way that I relate to people or the way I communicate or
Hmm.
how I feel. Like sometimes clients bring things forward and you're like, whoa, I need to clear that out. Like
Totally.
that's something that I need to feel. And
Yes.
yeah, having that humility to be like, I'm not always the teacher here.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm actually the student, or sometimes I
1,000.
need to, I've got more growth to do, which is actually
Absolutely.
really freaking exciting. I love it.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's really just having that mindset that it's a co-creation with your clients always. Like
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
it. Like it's a co-creation at all times. And
Yeah.
that seems to be a good frame of mind I've found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Super
must
cool.
be, is it weird sitting here right now as like all those years ago, I was in the client seat on your end and then seeing, I don't know, what's it like for your perspective to be now here, hearing me talk about how I'm helping clients when back then it was like you were helping me to transition into like becoming a coach and I guess finding myself and my true potential.
So it's interesting, Shane, because when I look at you, all I see is like it seems so natural. It just
Mm.
it's like, of course you are.
Thanks.
So
Yeah.
that's actually it. Like this is as we work together, I knew this would happen anyway. I was like, it's your
Mm.
thing.
Mm.
And obviously you were discovering what that was, but once you declared it and you're like, this is it,
Mm.
as I'm sure you know, you kind of get behind what your clients share with you. And there's nothing more phenomenal as a coach when you hear a client share that they've got something really deep on their heart that they're wanting to express.
Mm.
Like when a client comes to me and they've got that kind of energy, I immediately invest in it on some level where I'm like, I want that for you as well, because I can tell how much you want it.
Yeah.
So I
Mm.
guess I had enrolled in that in my mind for you. And
Mm.
so seeing you here, I'm just like, yeah, of course you are. Does that make
And
sense?
I feel like you've seen all of the like deep, dark parts of how I had to transform through those like old patterns and the really hard because you know, I'm just gonna roll with this. I feel like we've hit the ground running with this conversation. I'm
Do it.
gonna keep going.
Let's do it.
But for everyone listening, Nash was one of my first coaches, and I found him in a time where I really, really needed someone to help me through like a really tough time in my life. And I can remember being on pretty much every coaching call with you, bawling my eyes out, you know, going through like a big upheaval of emotions. And every time I spoke to you, it was like you were just this space. You just held this space for me to express my emotions. And it was probably one of the first times in my life that I felt like I could do that without someone judging me and or without you kind of without anyone imposing their own reasons why I'm feeling that way. It was like, you know, you just guided me through finding my own resolution with everything. And it was always such a crazy process to just speak it out to you, speak it out, talk it out, cry it out, and then feel so much more liberated out the other side. And like these calls, sometimes I remember there was like 3 hours that we were on a Zoom for. And I was just so grateful that you would hold that space for me. And now I know how to do that for other people because I was guided through that process. So a lot of my learning happened in the darkest, maybe not darkest, but some of the darkest moments of my life. And yeah, so you were that space and you were that person and you were that teacher. And it's really cool for me, I guess, to reflect back on that question that I just asked you. What's it like for you sitting here as like seeing me in this part of my life? For me, coming back to you in this part of my life is actually quite nostalgic and beautiful to be here in this space where I'm like so much more evolved than what I was back there. I've grown heaps, not just in my external reality, but in mostly inside of me. And I was actually reflecting earlier on this year alone has been like such a huge leap internally. And yeah, I feel like I'm being transported back to like remembering even further back to like, remember when you were in those first coaching calls with Nash and it was like this massive inner turmoil and I was in cycling back then. And yeah, you really helped me through that transition period out of cycling and into coaching. And here I am now. And I guess we can say this a lot, but I truly mean that I don't think I would be here where I am now if I hadn't have had that guidance. And that's really special. So
That
thank
is,
you.
hey, thanks, Shan. Well, first of all, it is really special. And what I always say to my clients is, you chose it.
Yeah.
You chose it. Like part of you knew that that was what was required. And it's always just, as you know, Coach, like Shan, as a coach, it's always such an honor to be like, wow, I got to be that for you. Like, thank goodness
Totally.
I didn't listen to all those bullshit stories that I used to tell myself about how I couldn't do this work and all this other stuff. Because when you see an epic client like yourself, you're like, that's it. That's why. That's why
Yeah.
I was meant to do this. And yeah, I
Mm.
remember those days, Shan. I'm not going to obviously share too much about it, but I'll share that you came to me and you were like, I got to get my numbers up. It was all about numbers. And you're like,
Right.
the numbers are slipping. The numbers are slipping. I felt for you so much because you were like, I got to get these numbers up. Everything I do, my performance is based on numbers. And I was like, you are you're depleted. And how do you
Mm.
get more out of yourself when you've already squeezed so hard?
Mm.
And there was this part of you that was in such conflict where any chance you had in the conversation, as soon as we kind of pivoted to something deeper, like a spiritual conversation, bang, you were alive. And I saw this energy.
Oh,
And then
wow.
slowly, bit by bit, you kind of had this revelation of this. You moved from wanting to be like this like higher level cyclist to actually tuning into what your soul wanted to do, which was,
Mm.
I remember at the time, was like become a yoga teacher. Like you just, and
Mm.
yoga was the kind of bridge for you. And then it was like enroll in the yoga course, and you were kind of like, really, like, is this a thing? And you went and did the yoga, and then that just had this snowball effect. And then you were sharing the conversations you used to have with your dad, and then I could see that was making you come alive. And it was just, for me, Shan, seeing you was just like you remembering. Like, and when I see
Mm.
you now, I just see Shan, like you're still the same incredible soul. You've just peeled back those layers on such a high level, and you've kind of reconnected to the essence of who you are.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew that, but again, you're reminding me that I was really hell-bent on the numbers back then, and reflecting on that is quite amazing. Yeah. It makes me laugh because like I can't imagine that version of me. Like I can't imagine being that version of me again, which I won't be obviously because it's an old let go
You
version
can't
of
you
me.
can't go
But
back
it
there.
it is remembering, right? That's what we're here for as coaches, to be that guide to help people remember who they've always been.
True.
So to ask a question out of that, you talk about um, a reawakening or awakening your true potential. What does that mean for people that perhaps haven't really heard that before? What does it mean to awaken your potential or your true potential?
Mm. It's an awesome question. So for me, I think it's like what I've come to understand is that at some point in our life, we get to take a step back and just have a little think.
Mm.
That's important. And when we do that, and if you look at the brain as well, and you actually realize what parts of the brain come online when you actually reflect and ponder and think,
Mm.
they are kind of the higher faculties of the brain. And if we are just in the going of life, then we are being someone, but who we are being, well, that's questionable.
Mm.
But if we actually take the time to step back and look and observe, then a couple of things will probably become evident. We will probably observe that we are being someone, and whether or not we chose who we are being, well, that might become evident. And we might realize that we're just being someone because it's who we've been told to be. But we'll realize all of a sudden, if we take a step back and look, we'll realize that we're playing a game. We're in this thing. We're in this journey. We're on this journey and this experience of life, and we are being someone.
Mm.
And if you look carefully, if you look objectively, pretty soon you ask yourself, well, when did I decide to be that person? Like, who am I actually being, and where is it leading me?
Mm.
I don't think it takes long. Like a few minutes of reflection can cause people to come to that, but like start asking those questions pretty quickly. And I think a lot of
Mm.
people don't reflect because they don't want to ask those questions. They don't want to stop. They don't want to ask those questions. And as soon as you create, as they say, it's the pauses that make the music. So if you pause and you step back for a moment of reflection, and here's the thing, Shan, if we don't take time to reflect, life tends to demand it from us.
Mm-hmm.
It demands us to reflect through illness, through breakdown of some sort, through some sort of experience where we are forced to look at life. So we can either consciously look at life or we can be forced to look at life. And obviously, when we're forced to look at life, then that's a more challenging experience. But if we can just look at life and be like, hey, who am I being? How am I being? And when did I decide that's all I'm capable of being?
Mm-hmm.
And who would I love to be?
Mm.
And then start playing that game and realize that we truly do get to choose. Like
Mm.
that's the gift. We've been given free will. And that is if you think about in a loving relationship, even when you truly love someone, you don't control them. You don't force them to be someone. You give them free will. You're like, be yourself and I'll love you. Obviously, there's certain values and things within a relationship dynamic, just like life. Life has certain values and things that are necessary for us to have a healthy relationship with life. But we've been given free will, and it's the greatest gift of love is free will. So we're not forced to be someone. We have the ability to choose. And again, going back to the faculties of the brain, the ability to choose is one of the highest functions we have as humans. And we are all choosing. We all once made a choice to be someone, to be who we have been. But what state were we in when we made that decision? What state we were in when we made that choice? Was it a disempowered little kid who made a decision? This is how I'm going to be because I think it's who I am based on what everyone's telling me, based on who I need to be to get love and connection. So we start to pull it apart pretty quickly, but ultimately we get to a point where we're like, who do I want to be? And for me, going back to your question, Chan, this is what it's all about. Is this making sense?
To me, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it makes so much sense to me. And often when I have conversations like this, I reflect on my clients naturally, and I almost feel like their questions come through me. And it's like I can hear these questions of, so how do you get maybe it's confidence or maybe it's courage? How do you choose what you truly desire, perhaps after a whole lifetime of choosing based off fear or based off trying to fit in or based off doing what everyone else thinks you should do or based off conforming to the stages of life that society expects you to go through? How do you then actually get the courage to, after a self-reflection, to choose something different? Because I feel like that's where most people get stuck, or a lot of people get stuck, is like they intuitively know that they're not in alignment with the truth of their soul, whether or not they've woken up to that or not. Their intuition knows it, right?
Yeah.
But how do then they take that leap to actually choose something different?
It's a beautiful question. And I think that what I always like to bring it back to, it's certainly in my own life, and I encourage my clients to do the same, it's to ground yourself in reality. Like reality doesn't lie. Do you like what the imprint is? Like or the printout or the result of the way you have been living is? Because there are many people who talk about this idea that our current experience of life is a printout of what we thought in the past and of what we've been running. And we get to experience a sample and like a true physical experience of our thoughts and our beliefs in the world. We get to experience that. So we get to decide, do I want more of this in the future? And there are parts of our true experience right now, if we look honestly, again, in reality, we'll be like, I don't want more of this in the future. And I think that that's the best place to start. Like look objectively at your life and just say, okay, how am I doing? How am I doing? As Zig Ziglar said, it was a checkup from the neck up. Give yourself that. Like check in. How is it going for you? How is the world around you? Not that you're in control of that all the time, but certainly you tune into things and the world around you does become a reflection of how you be. And then also ask yourself, how is the internal world doing? How is it inside me? Is it a nice place to live inside of me? And if not, then that honesty, there's a liberation in that honesty. As David Goggins says, it's the mirror of accountability. Just looking in that mirror of accountability and saying, hey, this is not working for me. This is not going well. That in itself can be so liberating.
Yeah.
And so I think that, and that's not about necessarily moving out of fear. It's about moving out of honesty.
Yeah.
You get honest with yourself. And in that honesty comes the most beautiful freedom. because it's when we lie to ourselves that we can really find ourselves in sticky places.
Yeah.
That constant kidding ourselves, like convincing ourselves that something's great for us when it's really not.
Yeah.
Honesty equals the liberation. So it starts with honesty, and then in that honesty, asking yourself, even though it might be hard to take some new action, is taking that new action harder than me ultimately ending up at that destination that I know I could end up if I did not change?
Yeah.
So choose your hard. And it will feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. And that's okay, because guess what? We all once learned to ride a bike and it was a little bit hard. Got there. Once you learn to balance on those two wheels, you're off and flying, as you know, Shan.
Yes. Yeah, I do remember that. I remember not knowing how to steer and not knowing how to stop. And
Wow.
so I stopped by crashing into our fence. I remember that very vividly.
Wow. Wow. Obviously, you got out of that phase pretty quick because you did
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I'm a quick learner, thankfully.
That's good.
Yeah, no, just reflecting on what you were just saying around the if you keep on repeating the same patterns, perhaps it's easier in the short term because you don't have to change anything. But in the long term, if we look down 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, do you like how your life has played out? Because you kind of know that if you don't change anything, the past is going to keep repeating itself. You're going to keep getting the same result because you're not changing anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that I also get people to reflect on if they are scared of the change, they're scared of taking the leap, they're scared of losing whatever familiarity they've got used to. It's like, well, just again, do a little self-reflection, do a little check-in. Do you like the way that your life looks in 20 years' time if you don't change anything? And oftentimes it's like, well, no, I feel like it's going to get worse because I'm crumbling already on the inside. And if I keep going, I'm just going to completely fall apart. And that's sometimes enough for people to go, okay, yeah, something's got to change.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the other part that I was thinking about as you were talking was the gratitude practices and maybe positive affirmations, and how the nuance in this is like the honesty with it's not good enough just to do a gratitude practice if there's nothing in there that you're truly grateful for, or positive affirmations if there's nothing in there that you actually believe or that you that is sinking into your subconscious. So tell us about how you do the deeper work with those then maybe gratitude practices and positive affirmations as a tool and as an addition to what you actually do with people from the inside out. Give us a rundown.
Okay. So I'm going to do my best to answer this. And if I don't answer it, just like feel free to ask the question in different ways. So
Yeah.
the first thing I'll say is I agree. If someone's life is not where they ultimately would love it to be, it can be very, very difficult to find something to be grateful for in that. So, and sometimes being grateful where it's like, I love this, I love this, I love this, but you're tolerating something that's really not good for you. Well, of course, that's going to be detrimental. When I talk about gratitude, I do not talk about kidding yourself. When I talk about gratitude, I am very much so about connecting to, like, being grateful for the reality of how it is, like being grateful for the real game of life. And the real game of life is that we all have a freaking opportunity. We all have a freaking opportunity to become someone. And that's straight away, if you're like, oh, okay, I can be grateful for that. Good.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can start there. You don't have to be grateful for the things that you don't love in your life.
Yeah.
Like, don't try and convince yourself. It's okay to be, as Ed Milet says, blissfully dissatisfied. It's okay to be dissatisfied with some things. In fact, that's healthy, because that allows you to like really acknowledge there's some room for improvement here. And thank goodness there is, because in that improvement, you get to dig in deeper to who you are and access more of your potential. So when I talk about being grateful, I talk about being grateful for the game, for the game that all of us are blessed to play, for the realization that you've got a pump inside your chest that beats 100,000 times a day, that chooses you every single heartbeat. Be grateful for that. That's probably a good place. I think there's power in that. Be grateful for the fact that you didn't have to do anything to earn life. It's been gifted to you. So this is what I'm saying. Be grateful for the game that's actually a play, but don't be grateful for things that are really diluting you taking action and moving to a greater experience of life for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So that's what I like to start with. I always like to start with the body and be like, okay, I'm grateful for this temple, for this vessel, and I like to nerd out on a few facts about the body. Most people don't even know we've got like 70,000 plus miles of blood vessels in our body. And each breath we take literally is having an effect on those blood vessels. And like some people would say even more blood vessels, but that's kind of what they've calculated, which from memory, you can wrap around the earth twice. So it's something to consider just in one human being. I also like to kind of ground people in the reality that, even with all the advances and billions of dollars they're spending on AI, they've still not invented anything close to a human being. And you got that for free. And in that reality, you've got something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Like when I say grateful, I guess what I'm saying is take stock of what's going in your favor. Because if you think nothing's going in your favor, you'll be trying to move ahead from an empty place, essentially. I've got nothing going for me. We want to take stock of what we've got going for us. So if you think about being in the wild, in the wilderness, and you're like, I've got nothing in my bag, but you've not actually opened the bag and looked at what you've got going for you, and you're just telling yourself, I've got nothing in my bag for my survival, then you're going to be really stressed out. You're going to probably meet your demise pretty soon. But if you actually stop and look in the bag and be like, hey, I've got a shoelace. I'm grateful for the freaking shoelace because I could tie up something. Don't know. And you're like, I've got a toothbrush, or I've got an old candy in my bag. Like it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And you start with what you do have going for you, even if it's it doesn't seem like a lot. Start with what you know and let what you know grow is one of my favorite quotes.
Love that. Yeah.
So hopefully that answers your question, Shan. Like that's how I use gratitude. I certainly don't use it to kid myself or really just like stop myself from addressing something that needs to be addressed by kidding myself, which I think that you get. Like you're like, honesty is really important.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I've kind of rebelled. This is giving me a good insight into a different way, a different perspective on gratitude, because I honestly have like rebelled against gratitude. I'm like, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
And these positive affirmations, like everyone in the personal development industry is talking about them, but they don't do anything because you're not actually truly changing anything from deeper in the subconscious. And that's what I'm all about, is actually getting to the deeper intricate parts of you, the codes that you've downloaded and the emotions that you've suppressed, and finding those and finding almost like the malware in your in your computer system that's like, hey, okay, this is what we need to clear out, this is what we need to work on, rather than just working up here all the time like I'm grateful. Totally. It's actually sinking it deeper within. And that is what you're talking about. It's just a new perspective and a different perspective on it. And when you truly feel gratitude, it hits so much deeper than just writing it in your journal each morning and not really thinking about it. When you truly, truly feel it, it's a full body feeling. It's a visceral, like, bring you to tears moment. Even if you're just grateful for waking up in the morning, you really truly let that land, that you're here to live,
Mm-hmm.
life
Mm-hmm.
for another day or for as long as you do, that
Yeah,
is something that hits you because we don't know. We don't actually know how long that's going to be here for.
it's true.
And for some people, it's not here for very long. And it's not about comparing yourself and or going down that path of like, should be grateful because other people are dying. It's more so just really let it land that you're here another day. Just really sink into that. And that's what I feel from you as as you're talking about that. I'd
Yeah.
love to talk a bit about your story. And you've been through, I mean, I know a lot about your story, and you've been through a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges, all the way back from when you were really young,
Mm-hmm.
all the way through your life, right?
Yes.
Can you talk to us about, maybe go into whatever detail you want on like the biggest obstacle or some of the biggest obstacles that have shaped you and what you've learned from them that maybe you didn't expect, or maybe they've made you who you are today, as we all say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love it. There's a great quote from the leadership coach Robin Sharma, and he says the things that have the potential to break our heart also have the potential to open our heart.
Mm.
And I absolutely believe that to be the case. Now, one thing I learned very early on in my personal development journey from actually Tony Robbins, studying a lot of his work, was he used to say, there's always more solutions than there are problems. And I really took on that mentality. There's always more solutions. And why would that be the case? It's because life wants us to win. Life does actually want, life is conspiring in our favor. And so I was really blessed to develop some perspectives that really allowed me to get through some big challenges with grace, I would say, and actually use those challenges to my advantage. As you know, Shan, as you know, some people may know listening to this. For anyone who doesn't, I'll share. But I trained as a combat medic in the military at 16, 11 months. I joined the military, just the legal age. Could not wait to get in there. I was in that freaking barracks every single day, hassling the recruiters, like all the things. I was there. I was doing that when I was at college. I was homeschooled all my life. I was the middle child of 11 children, 5 older, 5 younger. And so when I got my freedom, I got sent to college a year earlier because my parents could understand, they could see how frustrated and depressed I was getting as a teenager. I had all sorts of challenges as a teenager that I held within myself that I never shared, like to the point where I was suicidal as a young guy, like in a really, really dark place. I had learning challenges growing up. My parents were extremely academic. I never felt like I was meeting up to the mark with them. They were beautiful parents, raising 11 kids. I salute them, honestly. Like with 3 kids of my own, I'm like, holy shit. I should have swearing a podcast, Shan. It's like they did a freaking good job. And so I've got nothing but love for them. But for me, as a kid with individual needs, I had needs that weren't met. And that's not their fault. That's just me with needs. But as any human does, when the needs are not met at an age when you don't know how to meet those needs yourself, I found myself in particular places that were really dark, you know, using that terminology in there. But were also now I see very necessary. Like I had body dysmorphia at a very young age. I would eat, I would cause myself to throw up all the way through my early teenage years. I had a debilitating skin condition to the point where I had to wear these really thick clothes, and I never like showed my legs to my family, and I couldn't, like, they'd go to the beach and I'd be sitting on the beach, like, and that on a stifling hot day, they're like, Nash, why are you wearing pants and like not coming in the water? I was always that kid who was like on the outskirts looking in, like other kids are having fun. I can't do that. And that was always me. That was my experience. And that's not a sob story. It was just my true experience. I'm just reporting on my experience. And it wasn't until one day my dad took me to the doctor when I was completely, my body had just was tonsillitis for days and days. Like my throat was swollen. My face was like a sponge. You could pretty much push my skin in because my face was so swollen. My body was completely worn down because I'd lie in bed at night with this skin condition tearing at my skin. Like it was so bad, I'd be crying my eyes out. I wouldn't tell anyone because I didn't want anyone to know. It was like a personal thing for me. I held it, I held it, I held it. And that got so bad that my body broke down and my dad took me to the doctor, and the doctor was checking my glands, and he went and pulled down my top a little bit, and he revealed this horrendous rash that was all the way from my knees, all the way up my legs, all the way through my groin, all the way up to kind of past my belly button. And it was like this kind of weeping skin condition. And the doctor saw it and he gasped. And my dad saw it. He's like, "What is that?" And he couldn't believe it. And the doctor gave me some cream. And it was interesting that rash didn't clear up from that cream, but I started like I started realizing, oh, maybe there's a solution for this. And just a few weeks after that, I heard my brother talking about this particular cream he had, and I literally went and stole coins out of my parents' drawer to go and buy some of this coin from the pharmacy. And within like 3 days, this rash had completely cleared. It's sort of like I had to go full cycle. So I was experiencing these things really intensely as a young guy, like being homeschooled, always feeling like I was on the outskirts, watching kids walk past our house, going to school, like being homeschooled and feeling like I was always an outsider. But then I realized that life was giving me a gift in this, Shan. I realized that life was actually causing me to not be part of like the main system, the schooling system. It was actually giving me a different perspective on life in a really beautiful way. But then I did go to school at 15 years old. And what got me through was I was strong. I was able to lift weights. So I developed an identity around lifting heavy shit. That was, I couldn't speak. My social skills were terrible, but I could lift heavy shit. But one thing I had in college, Sham, was I had this drive to want to help people. And I actually went to the school counselor and I said to the school counselor, this is in my second year of college, I was like, I want to do something to help other kids. Because if I saw someone crying, because I'd sort of had that experience as a kid, really intense, like it went on for years, I couldn't bear to see someone suffering. So I'd sit with them, I'd talk to them. It didn't matter if they were one of the thugs. If I knew there was a thug in college, I would go and find a way to talk to them. Like I would go up to them in the bus stop. I would just talk to them and they were the sweetest kids most often. I got to see this thing of other people, like these other parts of people that maybe other people didn't see. And I got a little bit obsessed with that. I went to the school counselor, I was like, how can I help other kids? And he was like, just focus on your studies. And he kind of like shut me down. I was like, this is shit. So I went
Yeah.
to the blood bank and I got all these forms and I got all the kids to come to the blood bank with me and donate blood. Like that was my thing. And
Yeah.
then I went and joined the military as a combat medic because I wanted to like help on a bigger level. And then that caused me to then work in hospitals, and in hospitals, like working in emergency department, got very connected to the realities of life. And then I was doing the whole combat medic thing and working in operating theaters for 2 years. And then it all kind of hit me, Shan, where it's like I was getting exposed to a lot of really heavy stuff at a really young age. And I wasn't dealing with it. I didn't have coping strategies. I would just like show up, like white knuckle it, get it done, moving the dead bodies, carrying the limbs, all the things. And it all compounded in my system. And one day I was walking home from the hospital and I had a full on like breakdown, like just in outside a car yard on the way home, just like at a busy intersection, just like holding onto the fence. My system was just like, whoom, like just full. I felt like I was in a washing machine. It was crazy. And then I would just like break down in restaurants and things. Like my system was just like overload.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I realized I had to do something. I realized I had to shift things up. And I didn't quite know what that was, but I looked around at the people around me to see who seemed to be doing well. And one guy in particular was my cousin, who was a builder. I was like, he's happy. He builds. Building must equal happiness. So I went and became a builder.
Yeah.
And that was good, grateful for it. But then I realized I'd chased his dream. And it wasn't until I was very, very depressed because I had success as a builder and I did well and I had a really great little business. But I had my amazing wife. I had our first kid. I had a great, thriving building practice, beautiful vehicle, really nice house, and I was completely empty and miserable.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, what is wrong with me? And then that set me on the path of wanting to find a deeper reason for living. So I was really concerned, again, projecting my mind forward. I was like, I do not like who I will be in 5 to 10 years if this continues. I am really
Yeah.
quite scared of meeting that guy.
Mm.
And so I went and started, I went and looked at different business options and things like that. And I went and signed up to run an eBay business. And when I was doing that business training, they were like, you can't build a business with the same mindset that got you this far. So what they did was they brought a mindset expert on the stage. That mindset expert spoke a few words, and I saw myself and I was like, that is what I want to do.
Mm.
Like the way he moved me, and he actually said, Nash, what is your dream? Like, what would you love to do with your life? Not what mum and dad say, not what, because I had sort of joined the army out of obligation, like wanting to serve, like wanting to look after everyone. But it was like, what's on your soul? Like, what would you love to do? What's the impact you want to make? And then that's what really just stirred something new inside of me. And I said to Cassie, I was like, I'm going to do what he's doing one day. And I'm
Mm.
blessed to do that now. And I had no self-belief. I was so awkward in front of people, like you would not believe, Shan, like the most awkward. I had to force myself to go to Toastmasters presentations. Like I had to train myself, condition myself. And it was painful, but I was willing to do it because number one, I didn't like where I'd end up if I didn't do it. Number two, the calling on my heart was so strong to do this. So
Mm.
those earlier challenges then have led me to be able to navigate, and also the perspectives of I've learned along the way. Our baby girl, open heart surgery. She had that when she was born, like our third child, like
Mm.
found out she needed extensive heart surgery when she was born. I've had two siblings this year, as you know, who've committed suicide. Things
Mm.
like that, like just other siblings. I've got a big family, like big things that have happened in their life. Like with such a big family, as much as you want to help everyone, there's only so much you can do. Like you're there for them, but then people make their own decisions. And there's ongoing challenges that I've faced, Shan. But what I've come to know is that life doesn't give us anything that's not meant for us. Or we can use whatever life presents to our advantage. We truly can. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe we're meant to.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you don't use it, you might very well be used by it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe. And for me, it's really a matter of, I love what David Goggins says, Shan, where he's like, I want to meet my maker. And my maker's like, damn, I created you for this much, but you created this, you lived this much. Like you exceeded my expectation. I love that kind of living. But I think for me, Shan, just what's gotten me through all of these challenges is it's this deep trust. It's this deep trust that, like, truly life doesn't give you things that are not for you
Mm-hmm.
if you choose to see them as such.
Yes. That is a hard lesson to learn,
Yes.
but yes. And that's something that I've really been landing in over and over and over again. I feel like you go through these stages of learning. It's like, I know the information. I understand the information. Whoa, I feel it in my
Yeah.
body.
Mm-hmm.
And then that feeling deepens and deepens as it like embodies into you that, yeah, the challenges and the successes are all for you and they're all
Mm-hmm.
leading you to a greater version of yourself over and over and over again, this constant evolution that we get to keep stepping into. Yeah, it's honestly, for me, the most beautiful thing about life. And I desire that to continue forever. Like, I don't want to ever be like, okay, I'm done with my evolution. It's like, no, I want to keep on, like you said, I want to meet my maker and then exceed those expectations or exceed that potential.
Yes.
And I know that I'll never reach my full potential because that's not a real thing to me. It's like, there's what I'm truly in alignment with. And as long as I keep on being in alignment with the truth of my soul and what I desire and who I want to be, then I keep growing. And that's so exciting to me.
I
And
love that, Shan. And so sorry if I might just add in there.
yeah.
It's what I've heard. The more we move toward our potential, the more the potential expands.
Mm,
And that's exactly what you're saying. You're like, I'll never fully reach that, but I am fully on this game. I'm fully invested in this thing of seeing how far I can go. Like,
mm.
what's in this vessel? Like, how much can I get out of this thing?
Yeah, and that's a really cool perspective too, that it's already in you and that
Mhm.
like you don't have to look out there. Because I think a lot of people are like trying to accumulate and they're borrowing their power, they're borrowing their confidence, they're borrowing their magic
Mm,
from these outside sources that they think they need.
mm,
And even with coaching, right, when I was first coached by you and then I had my next coach and my next coach, I feel like
mm.
for a long time I was borrowing the magic of having a coach. And for the last, I don't know how many months it's been now, but I've gone on this like, no, I'm going to do this on my own for a little bit. I know that I will get another coach again,
Mhm.
but because I want to keep evolving. But for
Beautiful.
now, I'm like learning what it's like to be in my own magic and not borrow that feeling of like, because when you have a coach, it's like this, it's like a rocket launching you into your next level, right? And
Yes.
sometimes that coach is part of the rocket fuel. But to
Hmm.
learn how to have your own rocket fuel and to learn how
Yes.
to have your own magic from the inside out is something different. And so I
Hmm.
love that you said it's how much can I get out of this, my own soul, my own vessel, my own potential. That's really special to be able to realize that it is you. And even how you reflected on our journey together and you said you chose it.
Yes.
And that's special too, to understand that you did it, you chose it, you are it, you're being it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that. I love it.
But
I
it's
love it.
so beautiful, Shan. I couldn't agree more. And just to that point, like really what I have come to realize as far as living goes, like, this works for me. It's just like that might not work for everyone, but for me, the game I am playing, and I like to call it a game because it makes life fun.
Fun.
Um,
Yeah.
it's like the game I am playing is I am a channel. That's it. I imagine myself like a channel, and my job is to keep the channel clear. That's
Mm,
it. Like that is all I am doing because I don't cause life to beat my heart. I don't cause life to digest my food. Like all of the systems that are happening in my body by choice of something greater than me,
mm-hmm.
I trust that.
Yeah.
And so my work every single day is keeping the channel clear.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. I keep the channel clear and I let the intelligence, the higher intelligence, God, God, grand organizing design, as it's known, like work through me. That's it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I let it work through me. I'm just like, hey, I I know some stuff, but I don't know a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Yeah.
I need you to tell me because I'm pretty thick. Like I'm just gonna like get out of the way. I'm just gonna orientate myself in the best possible way I know how to be in a great state. And how I do that is knowing what my values are and living in my values.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I focus on those and I spend time with that higher intelligence and I just say, I'm open,
Mm-hmm.
work through me. And when you give me a nudge, make it really, really obvious because I can be a bit slow sometimes. That's
Yes.
it. And I'm like, and I literally sit down and I'll pull out my journal and be like, what is it I feel like is the best use of my day? And I write it down and then I get to work on that. And I always have the intention that that or it, like if it's not what I kind of channel, then I believe something greater will be revealed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm gonna take action on this because it's the best I know for now. But if something greater becomes available, like let me know, you know?
Yeah.
And it comes into my system, and I've always got a clear path forward. It might not be years in advance, but it might just be like a day, 2 days, 5 days. Call this person, do this thing. And what I'm doing is I'm constantly taking the most inspired action one day at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's so fun. It's like all my work is again keeping the channel clear, acting on the inspirations that come through and the guidance, and also doing like working on myself. So as soon as I get an inspiration, I have the self-belief to act on it.
Yeah.
Because that's what's frustrating when you get a download and you're like, oh, but I don't believe I can do that. So what my work is really, I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready for the greater level of insight to come to me and the greater opportunities. Like I'm constantly in preparation because I'm in expectation as well. I expect things to flow, and I'm like,
Yeah.
shit, I better be ready. I don't want them to come and I'm not ready. Like bugger that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've
Mm-hmm.
also got this mind game I play. If I'm not ready for it, it'll go to someone else.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few things come through when you're talking about that. The first thing is your journaling. And I know that you also have other rituals and other practices that you do. Give us a brief rundown of why you feel they're so, or why they are so important to you, and why you feel like they might be important to a lot of people who are listening as well.
Yeah. I love that. So it's about as simple as this. If you want your phone to work, you've got to charge your phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There are certain things that charge us as individuals. It's different for everyone. You don't need to copy someone else's, but if you don't know what's great for you, maybe it's worth copying someone who's maybe got a little bit of momentum in their life, or at least basing your practices off what they are saying work well and giving
Mm-hmm.
it a go. So that's as simple as it is. There's all of us need charging up.
Mm-hmm.
All of us need charging up, and that is a true thing. We're energetic beings. And there are certain things that when we plug into, aka practices that we do, when we do those things, it just it charges us. We
Mm-hmm.
feel like we feel full. We
Mm-hmm.
feel a different sense of energy. So, and you'll see on the days you don't do those things, your energy's off. And you just start realizing, okay, if I want to have greater energy, it's important I charge myself.
Yep.
And define what the most your favorite ways to charge yourself are, and then give yourself permission to do those. And
Yeah.
don't compare it to anyone else. It's going to be unique to you, and I hope it's unique to you. But again, you can base it off what someone else is doing, and like you'll know if something's kind of speaking to your heart. If you see someone else doing something and you really feel like, oh, whoa, I want to give that a go. I can. There's something in that for me, and it's not like leaving your mind.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that was ice baths. I got really obsessed with ice baths in cold exposure. Like I used to, I've always liked doing kind of challenging things. I find I work really well in challenges because it's just the way I am. Um, and I realized that if I don't challenge myself in healthy ways, life tends to challenge me, and life's challenges tend to be a little bit harder if I've not challenged myself. So I I put myself in situations where it demands more of me, and I get to see what I'm made of. And then I'm, as I said, ready for those opportunities that life presents. So ice baths are really speaking to me, but I started off with just like a 30-second in the cold shower and then 1 minute in the cold shower and then build up and up and up. And then I saw people doing ice baths, like I saw the Wim Hof stuff. And I was like, I was doing cold showers. I used to have snow on my water tank in the mountain where I used to live. And that was fine. It was cold, but I was like, no, I'm sure I can do this ice thing. But I was like, I don't want to do the ice thing. Like it looks horrible. And then I did the ice thing and I was like, I love the ice thing. And then I was like, yeah, and now I do it.
I can't live without the ice thing.
I can't live without it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so you sort of you'll get these curiosities. And I think that's if you look at a kid, like going back to what you were saying earlier, Shan, where you're like, it's about remembering and really just going back to, who we authentically are, if we want to call it that. Uh, as kids, we're curious, we're playful, we're like explorers, we're dreamers. We've got this beautiful belief in ourselves that anything is possible. We've got this belief in the world. We've got
Mm-hmm.
this connection to other humans where we just love everyone. Uh, and this, this beautiful energy just to like we wake up in life and like I see our baby girl in particular, our other kids still do it, and I'm really grateful for that, and I hope they continue. But our baby girl, like she's 4 now, and she every morning, like it's like the most blissful thing. She wakes up and she's like, "Good morning, mummy and daddy," like just like
Yeah.
so much joy. I'm like, she has got it sorted, figured out. Like that is like just bliss at seeing mum and dad.
Yeah.
Like if we can just have more of that and bring that back into life, um, then life tends to work out a bit better. So
Mm.
again, it's a choice. It's a
Hmm.
choice. Free will.
Yeah. And it's that slowing down, right? I feel like these rituals and these routines people see as taking away from whatever else they've got on their agenda for the day. And I'm sure you've found, and I've certainly found with myself, that when I found my own flow in what routine/rituals work for me, it no longer was something that I feel like I have to do, but something that I genuinely enjoy and I love
Mhm.
doing
Yes.
every morning, every day. And for me, it's a lot more fluid in the timing of it. Like I don't set timing anymore of like how long I journal for or how long I sit with myself for in what people may call meditation, and I just call sitting with myself
I love it.
because that's what resonates with me the most. And it doesn't look or feel, or there's no expectation of what my morning routines look or feel like. It's just what I've found. But if I don't do that, I'm more frustrated. I've noticed in myself, like throughout the day, I just get more agitated because I haven't sat with myself. And I'm also less productive. So people think, oh, it's taking me away from like these things that I'm supposed to be doing. But for me, it's actually made me more productive. And you do things faster and you do things with better quality and you do things with more inspiration. Like, so sometimes we have to go slower in order to actually get ahead and go faster.
Yes.
Yeah.
1,000%, Shan, you've nailed it. Again, like just I'll bring it back to the again, charging the phone. If you don't charge your phone, it's going to go flat. It just won't work. Doesn't matter how
Yeah.
much you smack that phone on the table, it ain't going to work. You got to
It's
charge the
not going
freaking
to
thing.
turn on.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like charge the phone, plug it in.
Yeah.
We all the same. And now the other thing you mentioned about emotions is really a good point because the
Yeah.
emotions, like I think a lot of people have misconceptions around emotions. So emotions are feedback. Emotions let you know when you're off course, if you want to call it that. And the more off course you are, by off course, I mean off course with the things that inspire you the most
Mm-hmm.
and the perspectives that will actually serve you, that's something that could be broken down on itself there. But the more off course you are in your thinking and in your behavior, the more volatile your emotions will be.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are trying to fix emotions
Mm-hmm.
without realizing that often the most simple fix is just bringing yourself back into alignment.
Yes.
So, like if someone's got an anger pattern presenting itself, I'm trained in hypnosis. So I'm going to be a clinical hypnotherapist soon. So I got regressing to root cause and looking at the big issues of where that anger maybe stems from. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes there is so much to be said just for bringing ourselves back in alignment,
Totally.
and that in itself can cause that emotion to dissipate. The emotion is just like an alarm clock. I often say I often share with people that we don't necessarily like the sound of our alarm clock, but it's calling you forward. It's actually, if you look at what an alarm clock is doing, it's inviting you into a new day. It's beckoning you forward. And like your alarm clock isn't out to get you. It's just
Mm-hmm.
calling you forward. Your emotions aren't out to get you. It's just calling you forward. It's just like, hey, and if you ignore the kind of quieter alarms, it gets freaking louder until you pay attention.
Yep.
And if you don't pay attention to the emotion, it starts to manifest in physical symptoms.
Yep.
Your body starts to break down and get pain. And it's like, are you seeing me yet? Are you hearing me yet? And if you
Mm.
ignore that, you ignore the pain, you stuff it down with medication, you numb yourself to it, and it goes on and on and on, repressing, 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 drinking alcohol, drugs, all the things. It just gets louder and louder in your system. It will find another way to surface. You cannot outrun your emotions. You can't ignore them. Well, you can, but one day they'll get your attention, and you might not like how they get your attention if you don't take the time to give them attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. There's so much talk also, especially in my evolution as a coach so far has been a lot about clearing out the root cause, right? There's been a lot of learning about that, what it means, how do we dive into that, how do we express suppressed emotions that are stored in the body? How do we release those out of our body so that we can be free and we can be a clear channel for our full potential to flow through?
Yeah.
But then there's also these times where like maybe there's nothing to like feel and heal. It's just a matter of you actually being, again, honest with yourself that you've slipped out of alignment, and your emotions are whacking you in the face to tell you come back into alignment. That's so true. And I love that nuance in the inner work that we're here facilitating.
Yes.
I'd love to hear, for people listening, I feel like it's easy to get this misconception that, you know, both of us sitting here as coaches, we've done a lot of our own personal development. And I know that both you and I have talked about, even in this chat, how our clients are teaching us to grow as well. And there's this continued growth. What does that actually look like for you? Are there things that you still struggle with, subconscious blocks, or are there challenges that you still come up against that you feel like you're working on now? I want to bring this humanness into these conversations to be like, yes, I'm still human. I still have obstacles. What does that look like for you on a daily or a monthly or a yearly basis?
I've completely transcended the human experience, Shannon. I don't have any issues.
Okay. No one can relate to Nash anymore. He's gone.
No, yeah. So like for me, Shannon, it's an ongoing process. And for me, like I'm really blessed to be reaping the rewards of the work I've done over the years. Like I can say with my hand on my heart, it makes a difference. Like it takes a lot to trigger me now. Like I'm fairly neutral, stable guy. I'm really grateful for that. But there are little things I'm like, shit, where did that come from? It's just like a little part of my personality, or like something can trigger me. I'm like, damn, where did that come from? That's really interesting. But I've got, as actually I heard Joe Dispenza explain it so well. He says, you know, it's not about completely eliminating these parts of yourself. And like, that doesn't mean you're failing if you still experience little bouts of frustration or anger here and there. But what happens is the refractory period, I believe he said it was called, was that like the charge, like how long you're in that charge is massively reduced. So you catch yourself in it and you'll quickly guide yourself back to a better place because you get the message. You're like, hang on, why am I feeling that? Have I done my things today? Have I charged myself up? And you can bring yourself back up. Like very often there's things like for me, Shan, like one of the greatest things, like I grew up in a really, like my dad loved the guy, massively intense guy, like very strict, very stoic. And for me, I've had to learn to soften from that so much. Like I really had to train myself to soften from that. And being in the military too, like I work really well when someone just is like, do it this way. Like if I work with a coach, I'm like, tell me what to do and I'll exceed it. Like that's it. Like challenge accepted. Like freaking give it to me. Like that's me.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're the same.
Totally.
Yeah. And I work really well with that, but little kids don't. I've worked out like our kids don't. And so I've had to learn to switch that off, which has been huge for me. Like actually fully embodying like this deep patience, this deep like softening and getting into my kids' world and into their reality. And can I just say to that point of really softening and because I guess when my kids, like my son in particular, when he was born, I had really high expectations on him. I was like, I expected so much of him so soon. Like, and I was still like, this is back when I was building. And, you know, I was figuring out the whole parenting thing. I still am, by the way. But it was like, in particular, I think that when I saw him being a little human, acting up, throwing a tantrum, I saw it as a reflection of myself and it triggered me.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was like, it means something about me. And so I was making it all about myself as opposed to like, he's a little human who's having an experience. And to the degree that I get into his experience and meet him with love and compassion, I actually parent myself.
Yeah.
And when I realize that, and when I see our kids now having a big experience, as much as I can, I move straight into it with them. I meet them in that.
Mm,
And it's the most beautiful thing because we have a deeper connection. I work on myself. It's so much easier as
mm,
opposed to like resisting and just pushing against it and trying to snap them out of it. Because
yeah.
you realize also their brain's not properly online when they're in those big emotions. So there's
Yeah.
no amount of like yelling or doing anything else that's going to help you apart from meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
So that's been huge for me, Shan, like overcoming those like direct patterns. Like I've had to learn to quieten and soften, meet my
Mm-hmm.
kids where they're at. And that's still something I continue to work on. Like I can very quickly like move into just delivering orders really
Yeah.
quick, like
Yeah.
efficiently, bang, do it this because I'm like, again, that's how I work.
Drilled into you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been one thing for me. And I'm very grateful for what I'm very grateful for my kids' patience as I learn.
Yeah.
I can go to my kids. I'm like, thank you for understanding. Like, I've never been a parent before. I hope I'm doing a good job. And
Yeah.
um, like, I let them know. I let them know that I'm learning, and I like my kids have been the greatest teachers in my life, honestly.
Yeah.
And you get that.
Mm,
Um, and like, I've also learned not to see my kids' behaviors as a reflection of myself as
yeah.
well. Like that's a big one
Yeah.
because I would really make anything they did a reflection of me and make it
Mm,
mean something about me. Like, of course, I'm influencing them on a really high level, but also understanding that all of us come onto this planet with, like, if you look at how far back programs go in family lines, it's quite profound,
mm-hmm.
and that there's many dimensions, and they're also completely unique. They're on their unique path in life, on their
Mm,
unique journey, and for me, learning to meet my kids in their uniqueness is one of the greatest blessings of my life, like
mm,
truly. So that's really been the work for me, Shannon. As I embrace that and I'm on the journey of growth with my family, like it's like everything else tends to become a lot easier. And even what my clients present,
mm.
I can navigate it because my kids are my ultimate teacher.
Yes, I love that so much. There's so many things that I resonate with in that, like even to the point of Phoenix hurting himself, and I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, why is he hurt himself? Right? It's obviously something that I've done wrong. And just catching yourself in that and going, okay, let's just come back to the moment. It's not about you. And also, he's going through this period. He's nearly 2 in 2 days.
Wow.
And I'm so excited. I'm so excited for his birthday. But
So good.
he is going through this stage where he has this burst of independence. So he wants to do things on his own. He
Mhm.
wants to clip in his car seat on his own, for example, or he wants to eat his yogurt or his oats or something by himself. And I know that there's this period of time where he's going to get frustrated, he's not going to be able to do it, or he's going to spill stuff everywhere. And there's this part of me which is also ingrained into me of someone just taking over and just doing it for me because
Mm,
that's the right way to do it. Like, no, that's the wrong way. This is the right way to do it. I'm just going
mm.
to take over. And that was my dad too, of like, no, this is how you do it. Like, we're just going to do it this way.
Yeah.
And so I'm also very much like that. And I am also very much like, just give me a program and I'll follow the freaking program to
Yeah.
a T. I'll do the
Yeah.
best job at doing that. And so, yeah, for me as well, it's been about allowing, like stepping back and allowing him to fail and to find that's been hard. Like the failure and seeing him fail and seeing him get frustrated and then letting him try again and then seeing him win and be like, I did it. And that empowerment of him learning is a gift for him that I've had to learn how to give him, and that you can do it. And I value all of the lessons that is teaching him, and as well as the tantrums that are happening, which stepping back from those and remembering that they're not actually fully online. They
True.
can't think clearly right now. Thing is,
True.
it's just about the emotion, and you've got to hold them in that. And that is also really healing in reparenting yourself, like you were talking about.
Mhm.
So much resonance with so many things in this
I love
conversation.
that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for opening to that part of your life as well.
Yeah, of course.
I want to ask you one last question. What does it mean to be authentically your real self now to you? What does it mean to you?
To me, Shannon, it's truly about knowing my values and living my values. That's it. Like, and by
Mhm.
values, I mean like what is what is my natural default way of being that I show up in, regardless of if there's an incentive or not. Like,
Mm,
who is that version of myself that I organically am?
mm,
Yeah. And knowing who that is. So I look at where do I like what do I think about the most? What I dream about the most? What do I spend my most of my resources on? What do people come to me for and gravitate to to me around? Like if you know, I think
mm,
about my friend circle, like what would people come to me for out of everyone else? Not because I'm
mm,
anyone special. It's just like, what do they come to me for? Like what makes me feel truly alive? Like what could I think? What could I spend my time? Like I really get to know myself on an ever greater level. And it's a process of discovery. And also what I'm constantly doing is just reorientating myself back to my values. Like that's it. So my values are my North Star. I know that when I'm in my values, so for me, some of my values are empowering my health, my family connection, my learning. I love learning and wisdom. I absolutely love serving my clients and running a business. Like if
mm.
I'm doing those five things a day, like rock solid,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm good,
Yeah.
and like whatever else can be going on in the world. But if I can do that, I feel phenomenal. I feel alive. I feel like I know I'm healthier. My immune system is super solid. I'm not getting run down. I'm not forcing. It's
Mm,
just an expression of who I am. It's just organic. And
hmm.
it takes time and it is a process of discovery to orientate yourself toward that and kind of releasing those parts of yourself that prohibit you living your authentic values. That takes work.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but but that's what authentic living for me is. It's living in line with my true values. And in order to live my true values, it's about constantly being honest about what my true values are, not what I want them to be,
Hmm.
what they actually are. Does that make sense?
Yes. Oh, 100%.
Hmm.
100%. You're speaking my language.
Good
And
stuff.
it's similarly, actually, to the gratitude piece that I spoke about earlier, where I rebelled against it. Same thing with values. I
Hmm.
like totally rebelled against values, probably after I worked with you, because it
Yeah.
was a lot about values, but I don't feel like I had this deeper understanding. Like, again, I knew it on a knowledge level, hadn't
Hmm.
embodied it yet. In the
Yeah.
last few months, it has landed. Like the plane has landed on values and what they actually mean. So, for those of you who are listening who are like, don't talk to me about values again, it's a different level when it actually lands in
Yes.
your body of what it means to live in alignment with your values and what they
Mhm.
truly are for you, what you
Yeah.
just spoke to, not lying to yourself about what you want them to be.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so different and it's so important that we know what they are, because if we're out of alignment, that can cause so much of our suffering, so much of our pain, and so much of our confusion in life of like, where am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? Who do I want to be? Coming home
Yes.
to that is like coming home to what your values are, what you truly want in life, what you truly believe in, and aligning with it, like coming back
Yes.
into
Yes.
alignment.
I,
Yeah,
I, I love it, Shan. And can I just offer a few things around values for everyone listening? Is that all right? Yeah,
please.
cool. Cool.
Yes.
So there's a couple of things. There's a few misconceptions and the reason why um, people do struggle with understanding values and recognizing the importance of it. Well, let's even just reframe values for a moment there and say, instead of values, let's just call them your ultimate operating system. Like if there was ultimate things that you do, you plug into, you feel
Mm.
alive, you feel fantastic. Your values aren't like I think a lot of people get confused with values because they've heard of companies that have company values and all these other things.
Yeah.
Misconception,
Boring.
and often they're like aspirational values, like integrity and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
fairness and all this. Like that's great, So there's a difference between intrinsic values and extrinsic values or vocational values. But intrinsic values are the state of being, how you want to feel, right? How you want to feel within yourself. Extrinsic values or vocational values are the vehicles, the things you do that ultimately lead you to feeling that particular way.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are focusing on intrinsic values. Like I quite often ask people when I start work with them, I'm like, what are your values? I test them straight away. And they'll give me these words. They'll be like, fun, motivation. And
Yeah.
they're like really struggling in life. I'm like, no, what does your life show your values are? Oh,
Yeah.
you spend time with your kid and you love spending time with your kid. Actually, that's a lot of the work we did, Shan, with you, was actually getting you back to your values. That's what I was saying. I could see you come alive in the spiritual conversations and everything else about reconnecting you to your values, even though you might not have liked it. But it was like, what is truly alive? Like what makes Shan come alive? And you hear people when they talk about their values, they won't shut up. Like they're alive, they're on,
Yes.
they're good.
Yeah.
Those are the authentic values.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you go out in a social setting, what do you talk about first? What's the first thing you like to talk about? And a lot of people resist their values because they're expecting themselves to be someone they're not. And they judge them. They're actually judging themselves for their authentic values, which is crazy. And that's where people feel massive misalignment. Like they look at their life and they're like, but I don't like my values. I want to be someone different. And that, by the way, is where there's so much chaos in people's lives. Where they're like, I don't like being, and a lot of people, for example, when they've got kids, their kids might not be their top value.
Yep.
And it might be a business. And guess what? That's completely okay. It doesn't mean you love your kids any less. It just means that business at this stage of your life, business is a priority for you. And probably in your beautiful system, you actually know when you empower yourself in your business and you earn that income, your family benefits from it. So you've actually created this priority and this understanding that it's really important for you to prioritize your business. But then if you're showing up in your business and you're judging yourself for it, and you're not there with your kids, and you've got a conflict there, you're actually judging who you authentically are. And so that can be an interesting one in itself. But to keep it simple, intrinsic values, the state of being within yourself, how you like to feel. Extrinsic values or vocational values, the vehicles that ultimately lead you to those feelings of just a great experience. It's important to know them. It's important to know what the vehicles are. And what a lot of people get wrong, if you want to call it that, is they go for the intrinsic values first. They expect themselves to have the feeling without the action. Take the action, the feeling is a natural consequence. It's a bit like if you want the writing to flow, if you're a writer, you've got to sit down and just type. It might not be there straight away, but keep typing, the inspiration flows. It comes as a consequence of you showing up.
Yes. That happens with my clients too. They're like, I value compassion and caring. And I'm like, no. We're talking about family or work or health or whatever else. Yeah.
Yes.
Because that is, like you're saying, exactly the vehicle to those feelings coming alive within.
Yes.
Yeah.
Spot on.
It's been an amazing conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for a whole another 2 hours.
Yes.
In our natural Nash and Shan style, probably. But thank you so much for jumping on and sharing you and your world and everything that you do with the listeners. Where can we find you if we want to know more about your magic?
Oh, thank you so much, Shan. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I'm so glad that we have come full circle, and it's just been such a special conversation. Every time I see your posts on social media, Shan, I'm like, oh, I'm always proud of you. I'm like, oh, Shan.
Thank you.
Keep going. So, I'm on social media, coach_Nash_Mackey, Coach Nash Mackey, or nashmackey.com. Super simple. And can't miss me. No hair and a beard.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Shan.